Big Bang. You know when you see the it was this big mass of dust and gas, and which made all our planets.
I would like to travel back to the Roman Empire. That seems to be the only other reasonably comfortable period in history. But I would need to be rich and own a large number of slaves. They were the pre-electronic form of domestic appliances.
If time travel were possible, and you went into the past, you could never come back to the present that you came from. You'd come back into another present, the present which had been changed by whatever you did. So actually going into the past yourself would be an act of desperation if you wanted to run away from your world or something and never return.
If time travel existed, the one place I would certainly like to go is to Antarctica around about 10,000 BC, because I'm pretty certain that Antarctica was the lost continent of Atlantis. If we looked under the 2 miles of ice that now cover Antarctica, we would almost certainly find the remains of a pretty complex civilization that covered the whole Earth.
Per raggiungere questo punto nel tempo non fu possibile farlo con un balzo unico, quindi partire dalla cabina e arrivare direttamente ad Atlantide, ma fu necessario programmare una serie di soste, quelle che noi chiamiamo i castelli temporali. Atlantide aveva delle caratteristiche tecnologiche molto evolute. Questo viaggio, questo contatto con questo popolo, con questo mondo è stato molto importante anche dal punto di vista dello scambio dell'esperienza, dello scambio delle tecnologie.
They may have had all kinds of powers that we can't even begin to envisage. Now, I suspect that all primitive people, in fact, still on the surface of the Earth, have this same strange ability of, second sight, certain powers that we would call supernatural, that shamans are able to leave their bodies. And I believe that this kind of thing was absolutely commonplace in Atlantis.
Last night, in the twilight gloom, a butterfly flew in my room. Oh, what beauty, oh, what grace. Who needs visitors from outer space?
Yeats once said, "Nothing that we love overmuch is ponderable to the touch." Nearly all things that move us deeply are things, in fact, that you can't touch.
Reality as a whole is a much bigger thing than the reality we see around us. And the universe we see is just one little thing in this much larger space. We see in the laboratory interference phenomena. We see particles and light behaving in ways that are inexplicable on the assumption that the things we see are the only things there. We see the influence of invisible things. And when we take that seriously as an explanation of the world, rather than just as a means of making predictions, we see that it says that there are other universes there.
Human beings, it seems to me, are almost like people wearing some of those peculiar spectacles which make you see everything in a sort of funny angled way and change your vision, like looking through a kaleidoscope. And yet we get so used to this from the second we're born that we take this to be reality around us. Now, I think that in certain states of mind, you suddenly realize that this is merely a pair of spectacles that you're wearing. The philosopher Kant was the main person who said this, and that you could, in fact, see things in a completely, totally different way.
If science works, then it works by rejecting ideas that once seemed to be true. In other words, it works by rejecting illusions. If you like, successive scientific theories, while getting truer and truer, are passing through successive illusions, making them less and less illusory as we go along.
Because we are living in a reality that is constrained by physical order and structure, which sees us need to have some kind of a continuum from the past to the future in order to exist, then we impose this idea of time onto the world around us. But we can, if you like, get into a helicopter and fly above that reality and see the universe as it really is, which is timeless and spaceless.
Most people are so completely trapped in, their own illusions, their own negativity, that they make no real effort. I'm absolutely convinced that if human beings concentrate sufficiently and make sufficient effort, everything changes.
The ability to distinguish illusion and reality, and then to willingly create and live in an illusion for a while, and to enjoy it, as recreation, I think is what distinguishes a higher intelligence from a mere animal existence.
We all contain this sort of robot servant inside us that does things for us. So if you learn French, the robot talks French for you. And when you learn to drive a car or do anything else, the robot drives the car for you. The trouble is he also does things you don't want him to do. So you listen to a great piece of music or are moved by some poetry. But the 10th time you read it or listen to it, it's the robot listening instead of you. Now, our problem is to get out of these robotic states. And any kind of crisis drives us immediately out of the robotic states and into states in which you might call yourself the real you.
Ci sono delle stanze a fianco della realtà che a volte non vengono esplorate. Sono quei posti dove avvengono spesso quelle scoperte casuali, quelle che poi cambiano completamente il mondo.
We have very good evidence today of people witnessing strange craft apparently coming from beyond our atmosphere, which appear to materialize and dematerialize rather than fly in the same way as rocket ships fly. And we call them UFOs. And I think that there are instances of people who are actually seeing today what are in fact time travel vehicles coming back from our future into our present day.
I gradually came to accept that in fact there are these sort of alien visitors. But one thing then began to puzzle me greatly. I don't think they're from other planets at all, and I don't think they arrive here in spaceships. They're more like ghosts, or rather, in some way they're paranormal. The simplest way would be to say they come from, if you like, parallel dimensions. And I've come to believe that their purpose is to help human beings through this next step in our evolution, to push us through that sort of barrier, because it's a barrier that every race is bound to meet at a certain point in its evolution. The barrier of the robot.
I kept standing there and he says, I'm a soldier. I kill people. Oh, there's one there. Bang! Like this. Oh!
Paradox and irony are very important to me, and I think to the growth of knowledge, because all creativity and all growth of knowledge start with a problem, that is an apparent conflict between two ideas or theories or observations which contradict each other, but both of which we need to be true.
You do go back into the past and you change it somehow. The whole universe changes as a result of that, but nobody ever realizes it. So the world could be changing every second and we wouldn't know it because we only live in the time stream within which we are entrapped.
Many of us think that there's no alternative, if we want to interpret the equations as referring to reality, to saying that the reality we see around us is not the only one, and it's affected by others. Now, it turns out that when you apply this theory to the question of time travel, it neatly resolves all the classical paradoxes of time travel. And the simple reason for that is that when you go into the past, you always go into the past of a different universe. It's a universe which is the same as your one up to the point when you went into the past. And then your arrival changes it into a different universe.
Which is more beautiful? A violin solo or a hole in the road? Oh, it's a violin solo. I said, wait a minute. Supposing it's a bloody awful violin solo and the hole in the road is a perfect ellipse. That's why it makes you rethink.
I don't think fate exists because everybody has their own way.
Throughout history, there's been a conflict between two different ways of looking at time and fate. One is to say, well, if the universe can be understood, if it's comprehensible, then it must be comprehensible in terms of laws, and laws say what's going to happen. And if a law of physics or a law of nature says what's going to happen, then it's not up to us to choose. When we think we're choosing, we're merely acting out some law of nature. The other view is that we have free will, and therefore we can freely choose, put something new into the universe by making a choice that wasn't predetermined. And it appears that these ideas, we need both those ideas to be true, and yet they conflict with each other.
We're almost invariably trapped, particularly when we're tired, in the materialistic solidness of the present moment. And therefore, we only exercise freedom when we're galvanized by some kind of emergency, or when we get these curious melting moments of total happiness. I think that human beings can exercise freedom, but it's only when they're pushed so hard that the mechanical part of themselves goes to sleep.
When I freely make a choice, what that means is that most copies of me in the multiverse made that choice, and a few didn't. The fact that a few didn't shows that I was free to choose otherwise.
I was just trying to say that's what fate is, you know. You go out the door in the morning and you're really very happy and pleased, and you get knocked down and killed by a bus. And that's fate.
Poter viaggiare nel tempo ci si rende conto che ci si può staccare da questa dimensione e si può vedere sotto di noi il tempo che scorre e quindi avere la percezione che esistono diverse realtà contemporanee e ognuna di esse svolge il suo percorso.
Per me il tempo è la percezione, mentre il destino è il suo giudizio.
There's very little justice in human dealings. Nature has her own justice, of course, because nature has ecology, and nature tends to balance things out.
Fortuna che l'unica cosa saggia in tutto questo è il tempo stesso, perché è l'unico che sa riparare qualunque errore.
I've come to feel very deeply and strongly that in a certain sense, merely committing the crime already puts into motion wheels that grind away and eventually produce the comeuppance.
Justice means fairness. That's all I know about it.
What human beings want above everything else, we're the only creature on the face of the earth who madly wants to change, to evolve, to become different. Animals don't seem to have this compulsion. It's just us. Are absolutely compelled somehow to try to claw our way up to a higher stage. Now, I've got a feeling that this is gradually happening on such a widespread scale that something very strange and interesting is about to take place. I don't feel that life is meaningless, that consciousness is basically a form of nausea. I believe that, in point of fact, provided we concentrate and keep the mind fairly alive and awake, then the possibilities are endless.
I don't think there's a God because nobody's bloody well seen him or her or him or it. But I read the life of Jesus and I think he was a wonderful person. I'd love to have met him and lived with him.
God is clearly timeless and spaceless, and that somehow in these moments of infinite awareness, we can sense that we are too timeless and spaceless.
He'd be been out of time, wouldn't he? He would be out of time if he came down.
Faith is a way of approaching conflicts between ideas. It's opposed to another way, reason, which is what science is based on. If you have faith, then you know in advance which of the contending ideas is going to be true.
Ultimately, I believe that that, as Anne Frank said, that people are good at heart. And I also believe that our curiosity and our drive to know things is part of our being good at heart.
I like to think that I don't have any faith because I like to think that my attitude towards contending ideas is based on reason.
Probably don't believe in much, but I believe in life and death.
He said, was the crucifix a cross or was it a tree? I said, no, if it was a cross, I said, no, it's a tree. It's made into a cross, but it's a tree. Stay tuned to the station for further useless information, folks. People have been putting flowers in the grave for me in my graveyard. They think I'm dead. Actually, I've been dead 3 years, actually, but nobody's had the courage to tell me.
I feel worried about dying. I don't want to die, but I know everyone has to die someday. But I think it'll be quite a long time till I die.
I don't mind dying, but I don't want to be there when it happens.
We're rather unlucky because on the cosmic scale of things, technology will almost certainly make dying obsolete within the next 1,000 years or something. But I enjoy life, and however long it's going to last, I want to fill it with understanding the world.
I think that we are now, at this point in time, ready to advance towards a new stage of evolution. I believe we are there in a sense. We've already arrived, but we don't know it. What we've got to do is to actually wake up to this fact. And as I say, what it involves is this curious ability to use the mind to focus the attention totally and completely and to achieve through that sudden awakening from the robot. And I think that is what is going to happen to the human race, maybe over the next 20, 30 years.